Chapter 20. Daily Life. Things change every day. With each new dawn, it is not the same world as before, and you're not the same person you were either. Haruki Murakami. The main goal of the pivot point process is to locate and effectively use maximum leverage for ethical problem solving. We started with the idea of simplicity as a guide, combined with the concept of defining pivot points as your leverage tool. Next, we looked at developing your primary pivot point and refining your 3 reasons, giving voice to your gifts and talents, and finally, choosing your living life list to live a full and directed life. Moving forward, your ongoing pursuit of pivot points can support you in keeping your living life list in focus and in balance. Being distracted by tools and ideas that do not support your life's dreams are the primary ingredients of procrastination and self-sabotage. It is crucial to ensure that your pivot point flow is in alignment by continually evaluating your toolbox of ideas and approaches that support your life goals. Let's explore some real-life areas where your pivot point process can quickly provide meaningful results. We spend our time on this planet in only a few major areas of our lives: family, wellness, work, career, friends, hobbies, goals, leisure time, service, and rest. Those who depend on us deserve our full focus and engagement in the areas of life that create transactional stability. As our priorities are further refined, our transactional stability can have a profoundly positive influence on all those in our relationship zones. Priorities. As priorities go, your mental and physical health should come first. You will be no good to no one, including yourself, if you do not commit to nourishing and protecting a healthy mind and body. Of course, sacrifices for others are sometimes necessary, but these sacrifices must not allow prolonged neglect of your physical and mental health. Continue to stick with your unique pivot point process with an eye on your primary pivot point. Your transactional priorities and ethical choices must be supported by your primary pivot point. Your pivot point process is there to remind you that you are out of alignment. Learn to lean on this process as a fundamental tool when the pressures of life begin to increase and transactional motivations, combined with codependence, begin to steer you in destructive directions. When life throws a curveball, pause and reflect on your primary pivot point to remind you of your daily commitment to your unique pivot point process. Also, employ the gratitude exercise at night as you close your eyes before sleep. This exercise is your defense against the continuous transactional behavior of the day creeping into your sleep cycle. Our waking hours are filled with transactional necessities driven by our dependence on vital resources. Nighttime is the time to leave the day's pressures behind for a compassion and gratitude reset. For most people, due to the ongoing pressures of daily life, the time for this essential reflection is best practiced in the moments before sleep. Acquire, by any means necessary, the discipline to focus on peaceful thoughts before falling asleep. Commit in these moments to direct your thoughts and energies toward the grand scale of balancing your life. All positive and uplifting outcomes in our lives depend on compassion-infused transactions. In the moments before sleep, we are more open and better able to see compassionate solutions that may have eluded us in the daytime. Through these ongoing meditations, consistently infuse compassion into all areas of your resource and transaction maps. This is a powerful discipline, and it reveals your next steps in any situation, both consciously and unconsciously. Maintaining this structure and routine will certainly influence how you see the world and how the world sees you. Media and you. Today's social media is nothing more than an ancient, ongoing desire of human beings to connect. Social media is a personality amplifier and can be a tool to provide some of the biggest pivot points you can find. But it also has the potential of being one of the most likely saboteurs of your time and purpose. It's a microcosm of life played out on a timeline. For example, take a close look at your social media timelines, if you have them, and your general communication on social media. Does your communication promote all the values of your primary pivot point and continue through your living life list? Look at your posts and interactions. Do they promote or tolerate codependency through blame, shame, and guilt? Do you or your closest friends take part in negative rants over politics, people, and situations? If so, this warrants another look at your primary pivot point to either reassess or recommit. Look for the known suspects of blame, shame, and guilt. If you see them anywhere on your timeline or your communication, consider deleting or revising the posts. If you find yourself watching or reading rants with these undesirable qualities of communication, use this as a pivot point by altering your viewing diet to support more educational, goal-challenging, and uplifting content. This goes for pornography as well. Avoid this destructive content at all costs. Pornography thrives on personal chaos and has the same destructive potential as any other harmful addiction. There is no place for pornography in a healthy lifestyle or in civil society. Yet, through the democratization of technology and the media in just a few years, pornography has become a mainstream threat to social norms, especially to our youth. One of your high-priority pivot points is to avoid exposure to this damaging content and ensure your children are shielded from this type of media. If you find you have an issue here, you owe it to yourself and those closest to you to make this one of your top-tier pivot points. We begin the next section by listing the most prevalent obstacles that people regularly face. These areas can be anything, but typically they include subjects like health, nutrition, workplace, computers, relationships, and business. The list can go on and on. Check the Pivot Point Effect website for a more guided approach to your next steps. Human health. Knowledge is power, but there is a world of misdirection in the ecosystem of human health services. Thankfully, human health is one of the most academically studied sciences in human history. The blistering pace of progress in the worldwide practice of medicine is among our greatest human achievements. There is still great mystery and a lot of conflicting information surrounding what to do with this marvelous physical body that we are given. Thankfully, there also exists centuries of scientific knowledge on the best practices of human health for which almost everyone agrees. Still, for some reason, we avoid much of what we know to be true in making the best choices for our health. History of human health. Our human ancestors evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to survive feast and famine. This adaptation evolved through a complex set of biological responses to food scarcity. In response to a lack of food, the body signaled a slowdown in metabolism as a biological cue to not waste precious energy on unnecessary movement. It also signaled the body to store any food it received into as much fat as possible for later use. Through this adaptation, evolution favored bodies that could store fat, energy, efficiently. Selection seems to favor body types that can put on the weight when needed during the times of calorie abundance. A light should be going off about now. These ancient genes are still in us. Natural selection favors those who store fat, energy, easily in times of abundance, and food availability is a dominant feature in modern Western society. These genes want us to gain as much weight as possible to survive the next possible famine. The disturbing trend is while food availability increases, the nutritional value decreases. In Western societies, a new era of abundant, unhealthy food choices has exploited the feast-famine gene for profit and created a breeding ground for metabolic diseases in children not before seen in human history. To further complicate things, our culture has created ideas like fat shaming as a ridiculous strategy to change the current metabolic health crisis. Overweight people are told that the way to fix the problem is to stop overeating and exercise more. Then, the feast-famine gene kicks in to tell your body to store any food it gets as fat and to limit unnecessary movement. Our modern society's body type preference is in direct conflict with our DNA. Natural selection, however, does not give up that easily. It is only in recent human history that we have generally solved the food distribution problem and made breakthroughs in life extension through modern medicine. It is also a new idea that our modern aesthetic has chosen to favor thin over heavy. This preference is recent in terms of the human timeline and appears to be driven by culture over biology. The DNA of thousands of years of natural selection is still with us and will be with us for some time, influencing our choices of when, what, and how much we choose to eat and drink. What is the pivot point in this case? Information. This knowledge can provide a new, informed choice about how to tackle ways to improve your health. Let's get started with a baseline to address the health over heft dilemma. Baseline. Fortunately, there's a simple medical evaluation that can provide invaluable insight to your health baseline. This evaluation is the test for what is known as metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a set of 5 risk factors. If you meet any 3 of the 5 risk factors, you are considered to be in metabolic syndrome and have a dramatically increased risk of coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers. Staying well below the metabolic syndrome risk factor thresholds is a pivot point. A quick trip to the doctor for a blood test and waist measurement is all you need. For most, getting out of metabolic syndrome entails a fairly simple lifestyle change. Risk factors for metabolic syndrome. Number 1. High triglyceride level. 150 milligrams per deciliter or higher of this type of fat found in the blood. Number 2. Reduced high-density lipoprotein, HDL cholesterol. Less than 40 milligrams per deciliter in men or less than 50 milligrams per deciliter in women of this good cholesterol. Number 3. Increased blood pressure, 130/85 mmHg or higher. Number 4. Elevated fasting blood sugar, 100 milligrams per deciliter or higher. Number 5. Large waist circumference, a waistline that measures at least 35 inches, 89 centimeters, for women and 40 inches, 102 centimeters, for men. If you have any 3 of these 5 risk factors, you are in metabolic syndrome. Doing something about these risk factors is a powerful pivot point, mainly because these risk factors are predominantly associated with lifestyle choices and are under your control to change. Listen to your doctor's recommendations, but in most cases, these risk factors can be addressed with good nutrition, exercise, supplementation, reduction of stress, better sleep, and focus on a life of laughter and joy. Your life is a jigsaw puzzle. It's a quest to find all the pieces and put them together. Pieces can be forced and look as though they fit, but when your choices and transactions truly reflect your pivot point process, the forced pieces should become obvious. Be thorough and critical with your precious health and work constructively with your medical practitioners. Your goal is to find the pieces that fit. Go to pivotpointeffect.com for access to resources to assist you with your unique health puzzle.